Have you ever wondered why some people seem to radiate health effortlessly, as if their very presence carries an invisible harmony, while others struggle endlessly despite all their efforts? Could it be that true health has less to do with circumstances, treatments, or even genetics, and far more to do with the way we think, believe, and align ourselves with something greater? What if I told you that health isn't a rare privilege granted to a lucky few, but rather the natural state of every person when their mind is in harmony with divine truth? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely change the way you see your own body, your well-being, and the source of life itself. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. You see, for centuries, we've been taught to look outside ourselves for the secret to health, searching in medicine, in rituals, in complicated programs or elusive formulas. Yet, at the core of the greatest spiritual teachings lies a much simpler, but infinitely more powerful truth. When thought aligns with truth, health follows naturally. It's not an accident, not a gift reserved for the chosen, and not the result of random chance. It is law, unchanging, impartial, and available to all. Has this ever happened to you? You feel a sudden, unexplainable peace in your heart, and with it your body seems to respond instantly. That's the inner order of life revealing itself. This understanding brings us to something deeply profound: the house of God. Now, when I say that, you might picture a grand cathedral, a temple of stone, or a place of worship with stained glass windows. But here, we're talking about something far more intimate. The true house of God is not built with human hands. It is the sanctuary of your own soul. It's the hidden chamber within you, where the presence of life itself dwells, where communion happens in silence, without the need for elaborate rituals or spoken words. Imagine for a moment stepping into this inner sanctuary. You don't have to travel miles, follow complicated steps, or wait for permission to enter. It's already yours. It's as close as your own breath, as near as your own heartbeat. Inside this space, the noise of fear, doubt, and separation fades away, and what remains is pure connection. And in that connection, health isn't something you chase. It's something that naturally rises within you. Think about how much time we spend trying to fix what's wrong with us, focusing on symptoms, flaws, and limitations. We analyze, measure, and sometimes obsess over the body, as if it were separate from our spirit. But what if the real shift happens not by fighting against what we don't want, but by remembering who we truly are and aligning our thoughts with that truth? In that moment, you begin to understand. The body is not your master. It is your servant, faithfully reflecting the state of your inner world. So let me ask you, when was the last time you approached your health from the inside out? Not with fear, but with faith. Not with tension, but with trust. Could it be that your own house of God, this sacred place within, holds the key to the well-being you've been searching for? In just a moment, we're going to step even deeper into this truth. We'll explore how entering this inner sanctuary transforms not just your thoughts, but your physical reality, and why the alignment of your mind with divine truth is the foundation for unshakable health. And as we move forward, you might just realize that the door to this sanctuary has been open all along, waiting for you to walk in. If this message added value to your journey, stay with us. Subscribe so we can keep exploring these truths together. When you start to see illness not as some mysterious curse or random misfortune, but as the echo of a belief you've been carrying, often unconsciously, it changes everything. This is where the hidden truth about health begins to unfold. Your body is not acting against you. It is faithfully translating the story you tell yourself deep inside. If the story is filled with separation, scarcity, or fear, the body listens and responds accordingly. It tenses, it contracts, it loses balance. But if the story is one of life, of divine intelligence, of love without limits, then something remarkable happens. The body organizes itself around that truth. Think about how easily we accept certain narratives without questioning them. A passing comment from someone, a diagnosis spoken in a moment of uncertainty, a memory of past struggles. They lodge themselves in the mind, quietly shaping the way we see ourselves. Over time, these unexamined beliefs begin to feel like reality. Yet they are not reality. They are decisions we once made about what was true for us, and like any decision, they can be changed. The impact of such a shift is profound, because when the mind chooses a new alignment, the body has no choice but to follow. This is the transformation most people overlook. They try to treat the effect while leaving the cause untouched, never realizing that the real work begins in the unseen spaces of thought and conviction. Every belief is like a seed planted in the soil of your consciousness. Nurture a belief in limitation, and you'll eventually harvest its fruits in your health, your emotions, and your energy. Plant a belief in abundance, divine connection, and inner strength, and the harvest will be very different. The mind is the quiet architect, the body the faithful builder. Behind the scenes of every symptom, there is a thought pattern that has been rehearsed for years. Sometimes it's inherited from family attitudes, sometimes shaped by cultural fears, sometimes born out of personal disappointments. And because these patterns run so deep, we often mistake them for who we are. But they are not our identity. They are simply old agreements we've made with ourselves, and agreements can be rewritten. The journey toward rewriting them isn't about denial or pretending the body is fine when it feels otherwise. It's about consciously replacing the old blueprint with one that reflects the truth of who you are in your essence, whole, connected, and sustained by a life force greater than any passing condition. This is not just positive thinking. It is deliberate reprogramming at the level where reality is shaped. As you begin to shift these beliefs, you'll notice subtle changes, a greater sense of ease in your body, a softer inner dialogue, a new lightness in how you carry yourself. These are signs that the alignment is taking root. And the more you nurture it, the more the outer form, the body, the circumstances, mirrors the inner state. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, exploring how the very atmosphere of your thoughts can either weaken or strengthen the physical vessel you live in, and how mastering this inner environment is the most powerful health decision you will ever make. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." When we talk about spiritual truth, many people imagine something abstract, distant, or wrapped in mystical mystery. But the hidden truth is that it's profoundly practical. So practical that, once understood, it can be applied to every detail of life, including health. It's not about waiting for a miracle to descend from somewhere far away, nor about hoping for a random stroke of good fortune. It's about making a decision to shift your attention away from the weight of the problem and fix it firmly on the presence of God, on the certainty of good already at work. This isn't wishful thinking. It's a deliberate change in focus, a mindset that refuses to be defined by circumstances and instead shapes them from the inside out. Imagine for a moment that your thoughts are like a lens. Where you focus determines what comes into view, and what comes into view becomes the reality you interact with. If the lens is fixed on symptoms, fear, or scarcity, that becomes the dominant experience. But when the lens is turned toward divine order, toward the presence of life that cannot be diminished, the atmosphere of your mind changes, and with it, the messages sent to your body. Behind the scenes, this is how transformation begins, in the invisible alignment of thought with truth. This was exactly the principle Jesus demonstrated in every act of healing. He didn't check whether someone was worthy or investigate their history to decide if they deserved restoration. He didn't create exceptions to the rule. He revealed the rule itself. Divine law was not suspended for a moment to allow a miracle. Rather, the miracle was simply the visible expression of law in action. When he declared wholeness, he wasn't introducing something foreign into a broken situation. He was uncovering what had always been true beneath the appearance of disorder. That's why his healings carry such impact even centuries later. They weren't anomalies, they were revelations. Each one was like a window thrown open to show what's possible when thought aligns completely with the reality of God's presence. The kingdom he manifested wasn't limited by time, place, or person. It was, and still is, universally available. And this is where the journey becomes deeply personal. If such law operates without favoritism, then it can operate in you right now with the same certainty. The challenge is that our human conditioning often expects complexity. We believe that something as life-changing as healing must be surrounded by rituals, long processes, or special intermediaries. Yet the law responds not to complication, but to clarity. The decision to live as if health is already yours, because in spirit it is, creates an inner alignment that nothing outside can shake. This doesn't mean ignoring facts. It means choosing which truth you will serve, the temporary evidence of the senses or the enduring reality of divine life. Join me here so you never miss the next insight that could shift your perspective entirely. Just hit subscribe. The more you hold to that reality, the more natural it becomes to act from it. It stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like the most obvious way to live. And as that shift takes place, something remarkable happens. You find yourself less reactive, more centered, and quietly confident that the order you affirm within is steadily taking form without. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding how this law operates in the quiet spaces of your mind will reveal why the smallest shift in focus can trigger the most profound changes in your entire being. Write in the comments, "I choose divine order." If you could truly see your body for what it is, a living temple of the spirit, you might never speak about it, think about it, or treat it the same way again. This temple is not a random collection of cells and organs. It is the visible expression of something invisible and eternal. Every function, every rhythm, every moment of balance is sustained not primarily by external conditions, but by the convictions you hold in the deepest part of your consciousness. The state of your body is, in many ways, the physical biography of your inner life, the living record of the beliefs you have chosen to nurture or unknowingly allowed to take root. The hidden truth is that no disorder exists without first being conceived in thought. This isn't about blame, it's about understanding the chain of cause and effect that quietly governs our lives. The body is never the origin of the problem. It simply plays the role of messenger, faithfully reflecting the state of the soul. And because the soul operates through thought, the beliefs you accept, whether empowering or destructive, become blueprints the body will follow. Behind the scenes, this is a process so consistent and precise that once you become aware of it, you can start to read your own patterns with startling clarity. It's fascinating how easily we accept that emotions like joy or anxiety can influence heart rate, breathing, or digestion. Yet we hesitate to take the next step and acknowledge that all forms of imbalance, even chronic ones, are shaped in the same way. This doesn't mean the body is fragile. It means it is responsive, incredibly loyal to the story you are telling yourself day after day. Change the story, and you change the architecture of that temple. This is where transformation begins. When you shift your mindset from identifying with symptoms to identifying with the truth of divine life within you, you initiate a realignment that reaches into every cell. You start to carry yourself differently, to breathe differently, to inhabit your body as a sacred space rather than a burden to be managed. And that decision, to see yourself as a temple rather than a machine, creates an entirely new atmosphere for healing to unfold. Sometimes the most profound changes start with subtle acts. Refraining from speaking about your body as weak, replacing casual self-criticism with silent blessings, pausing to recognize the intelligence that keeps your heart beating and your lungs expanding without conscious effort. These moments are not small. They are seeds. They reprogram the very ground from which your physical experience grows. Over time, the body responds, not because you have forced it into compliance, but because you have restored the clarity of the blueprint it was designed to follow. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, exploring how the quality of the thoughts you permit to dwell in your inner sanctuary can either preserve the harmony of this temple or slowly erode it, and why mastering that inner space is one of the most impactful choices you will ever make for your well-being. Write in the comments, "My body is a sacred place." Every word you speak about your body is like a signature on an invisible contract. The mind listens, the body listens, and the agreement is sealed in ways you might not even realize. When you declare weakness, whether in frustration, habit, or even humor. You're not just describing something, you're reinforcing it. It's a form of negative prayer because prayer, in its truest essence, is any thought or word charged with belief. The moment you attach conviction to what you say, you're planting a seed, and the body, like fertile soil, will try to make it grow. Behind the scenes of every complaint about the body, there is an instruction being given. The muscles, the cells, the systems don't question your intent. They simply respond to the blueprint you've drawn with your language. And if that blueprint is shaped by limitation, the body will mirror it without hesitation. This is why transformation begins not in a medical chart, not in the latest wellness routine, but in the quiet decision to speak differently, not just when you feel good, but especially when you don't. It's here that the hidden truth becomes almost startling. Your body is not waiting for a perfect diet, the ideal environment, or a specific treatment to begin restoring itself. It is waiting for your mind to stop contradicting the health it was designed to express. The moment your thoughts align with God, as life, as order, as unchanging good, you remove the interference. And when that interference is gone, healing is not something you have to force. It becomes the natural consequence of harmony restored. The impact of this shift is often underestimated. People imagine they can think one way and live another, speak one way, and expect different results. But the journey toward real health is not about compartmentalizing. It's about unifying. What you believe, what you speak, and what you expect must begin to tell the same story. When that happens, the body receives a single, consistent message, and it knows exactly what to do with it. Think about the power this gives you in everyday life. A casual remark like, "I'm getting old," or "my back is killing me," might seem harmless, but it's a direct order dressed as small talk. On the other hand, choosing to affirm strength, vitality, and wholeness, even in the face of symptoms, is a decision to plant seeds that support your well-being rather than undermine it. Over time, those seeds take root, and the body's responses begin to change in ways that feel almost effortless. This is not about denying what's there. It's about choosing which reality you will feed. The senses will always present their version of events, but you have the authority to decide whether that version will be the final word. And that decision, moment by moment, is where healing begins. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because when you understand how your inner dialogue shapes not just your mood, but the very chemistry and structure of your body, you'll realize the immense influence you already have over your health and why reclaiming that influence might be the most important choice of your life. Write in the comments, "My words shape my health." When you strip away all the layers of ceremony, all the inherited notions of needing something external to approach the divine, what remains is something far more intimate and far more powerful. God is not a distant figure to be summoned through elaborate rituals or elaborate performances. God is within, woven into the very essence of your being, closer than your own breath. And yet, in the noise of daily life, in the endless stream of thoughts and distractions, this presence can feel almost hidden, as if it's waiting for you to remember it's there. That's why deep silence is not just an absence of sound. It's the doorway to hearing what words could never fully capture. In that stillness, truth begins to reveal itself, not as a concept to be memorized, but as a living awareness that resonates in every fiber of your being. It's in those moments that you start to sense a shift, a subtle yet unmistakable transformation in the way you perceive yourself and your life. The chatter quiets, the demands of the outer world fade, and you become aware of something unshakable at the core of your existence. But awareness alone is only part of the journey. Recognition must be active, not passive. To recognize God's life within every cell is to speak it, to affirm it with authority, as if you were declaring a truth that overrides every other narrative your senses might present. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about aligning yourself with a reality that already exists and giving it precedence over appearances. When you affirm, with conviction, that divine life animates every cell, you're not begging for health to arrive. You're acknowledging that it is already the foundation of your being. If you felt this spoke to you, subscribing is the best way to keep walking this path side by side. The hidden truth is that authority is a language the body understands. It doesn't respond to half-hearted, uncertain statements. It responds to clarity, to faith spoken without hesitation. Just as a leader's voice can calm a crowd or shift the direction of a movement, your inner declaration can reorganize the entire state of your body. This is where mindset becomes more than a personal development buzzword. It becomes a spiritual tool, a decision to inhabit a reality where health, vitality, and peace are not goals to chase, but truths to embody. And something remarkable happens behind the scenes when you live this way. The body, which once seemed to operate on its own terms, begins to mirror the steadiness of your inner recognition. Stressful reactions fade more quickly, tension unwinds more easily, and even in the midst of challenges, you carry a different atmosphere, one that subtly communicates to every part of you, all is well. This is not denial of reality. It is the establishment of a higher reality in which the presence of God is the constant, and everything else adjusts to that truth. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, exploring how this conscious recognition, spoken, felt, and lived, can become the most transformative force in your personal journey, capable of reshaping not only your health, but the entire way you move through the world. Write in the comments, "The presence is within me." Faith is the bridge between what is unseen and what eventually becomes undeniable. It asks you to walk before the ground appears beneath your feet, to declare something real before your senses agree. Most people reverse this. They wait for evidence, for signs, for proof that it's safe to believe. But the hidden truth is that the evidence you're waiting for is often held back by your hesitation to affirm what you already know deep down. Faith is not blind optimism. It's a deliberate decision to align with the truth of God's presence and law before anything around you gives you permission to do so. This is why transformation rarely happens in the comfort zone of waiting. It happens when you risk speaking health while symptoms still speak otherwise, when you choose to affirm abundance while circumstances argue for lack, when you live as if the reality you desire is already unfolding, because in truth, it is. The impact of this choice is profound, not because you force results into existence, but because you remove the resistance that was keeping them from appearing. And here's where the journey takes an even more intimate turn. What you focus on expands. If your attention is locked on symptoms, you feed them, not because you want to, but because focus is nourishment. Every mental replay, every anxious thought, every repeated conversation about what's wrong is like pouring energy into the very thing you want gone. The body, ever faithful to the instructions of your inner world, continues to manifest what receives the most attention. But the opposite is also true. Shift your focus to God, not as a vague concept but as the living, sustaining presence that animates you right now, and something begins to dissolve. The fear, the tension, the tightness that held symptoms in place loses its grip. This is not about ignoring reality. It's about feeding a higher one until it becomes the dominant expression. It's a subtle but powerful redirection of your energy, one that requires both discipline and trust, because the temptation to measure progress by what you see is constant. Behind the scenes, though, this change in focus reorders everything. Your nervous system begins to relax, stress chemistry diminishes, and the body can finally engage its natural capacity to repair and restore. And all of it starts with a quiet but firm decision: to stop feeding the problem and start affirming the solution. That decision, repeated moment by moment, is where the real healing process begins, not as a distant hope, but as a present reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you truly understand how to shift your inner attention and sustain that alignment, you'll see why the results that once felt impossible can begin to unfold naturally, without the strain of forcing them. Write in the comments, "I choose where my focus goes." The temple of God, which is your true being, stands untouched beneath every passing shadow. What the senses call illness, decay, or weakness is never an attack on your real essence. It is only the echo of a mistaken cause, a distortion born from thought. When you shift the cause, the echo fades. This is the hidden truth most overlook. You are not fighting an invader. You are clearing a fog. The spirit within you has never been diminished, never been wounded, and it is from that wholeness you draw your strength. Every disorder, no matter how convincing its appearance, exists only as long as the mindset that sustains it. Change that inner decision, and the outer world must adjust. This transformation is not about force or willpower. It is about realignment, and this realignment is nurtured most powerfully in silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. In this space, the noise of fear loses its authority, and you begin to hear the deeper current of truth flowing beneath it. Daily moments of intentional quiet are like stepping behind the scenes of your own mind, where you can see the patterns that have been running unchecked. It is here you can choose differently, without the pull of distraction or the pressure of appearances. Let's keep uncovering the hidden truths that change everything. Subscribe and stay connected. Simple affirmations, when they are felt rather than recited mechanically, become seeds that reprogram the soil of belief. They are not magic words. They are decisions given voice. When spoken from the heart and reinforced with conviction, they dismantle the scaffolding of falsehood that illness has built upon. A single phrase, repeated in faith, carries more power than hours of anxious analysis, because it roots itself in the truth of what you already are. This is where mindset becomes medicine. Every time you choose to affirm life, strength, and divine order, you are instructing the body to follow a new blueprint. It's like replacing faulty architectural plans with the original design, one that was flawless from the start. Over time, the body responds, not because it's been forced to obey, but because it's finally receiving accurate instructions from the source. The impact of this shift is profound. You begin to notice subtle changes, tension easing where it once held firm, energy flowing where it once felt blocked, a lightness of spirit that gently overrides the heaviness of fear. And it all begins with the willingness to believe that change is possible before you see it. That belief, practiced daily in silence and reaffirmed through deliberate thought, is what opens the door for health to return as naturally as it once seemed to fade. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you grasp how these moments of stillness can reshape not only your physical state, but the entire direction of your journey, you'll understand why the inner sanctuary is the most powerful place you can stand. Write in the comments, "I return to the stillness within." Noticing the subtle signs of life returning is more than encouragement. It's a form of participation in your own healing. Each time you acknowledge a moment of ease, a flicker of energy, a night of deeper rest, you are reinforcing the blueprint of wholeness. This is why keeping a record matters. It trains the mind to look for what is working rather than what is missing. And in that shift of attention, the law you are aligning with gains momentum. Gratitude isn't a polite afterthought. It is an active force that multiplies what you recognize. By dwelling on even the smallest improvement, you open the door for the next one to step in. There is a hidden truth here that many overlook. Healing is not a race. It is not about how quickly the visible changes appear, but about the certainty with which they are taking form. The law that governs restoration does not rush, because it does not need to. Just as the seed grows unseen beneath the soil before breaking into the light, your renewal begins in places the eye cannot reach. If you understand this, you stop measuring progress by the clock and start measuring it by the quiet conviction that it is inevitable. Impatience is often a form of doubt disguised as urgency, but the moment you accept that divine law is already in motion, your energy shifts from forcing results to allowing them. This change in mindset is powerful. It dissolves tension, calms the nervous system, and creates the ideal conditions for the body to follow the truth the mind has embraced. You're no longer questioning if it will happen. You're simply witnessing how it unfolds. Behind the scenes, something remarkable is taking place. Every time you affirm life, every moment you choose gratitude over complaint, every breath you take with awareness rather than anxiety, you are reinforcing the conditions in which the law operates flawlessly. The process may be invisible at first, but it is relentless in its precision. Nature does not fail to turn the seed into the tree. It simply does so at the pace that guarantees strength. The impact of living with this understanding is profound. You begin to walk differently through your own journey, not with the restless need to get there faster, but with the quiet strength of someone who knows they are already on the right path. Gratitude becomes your compass, patience your anchor, and faith the constant pulse beneath it all. And when this becomes your natural way of being, the body cannot help but reflect it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you truly see how this law works with unshakable consistency, you'll realize that the way you relate to time, progress, and even the concept of healing itself will transform completely. Write in the comments, "I trust the law at work in me." When you begin to see health not as something to chase, but as your original and natural state, the entire game changes. You realize that what you are actually doing is not creating health, but clearing away the layers of belief that have obscured it. Illness, then, is not an invader, it is a reflection, a signal of some thought, emotion, or conviction that has been silently shaping the body's reality. This is not about blame, it's about empowerment. Because if the origin lies within, then so does the authority to change it. The mind holds stories it has carried for years. Stories of limitation, unworthiness, fear. Some of them aren't even yours. They are inherited from family, absorbed from culture, whispered by the world, until you mistook them for truth. Yet deep inside, spirit has never agreed with these narratives. That's why when you align with the deeper truth, the body begins to reorganize itself around that higher pattern. The tension loosens, the systems reset, and the intelligence of life flows unobstructed again. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe now so the next one finds you right on time. Hidden beliefs are powerful architects. Fear can contract the very energy that sustains vitality. Guilt can weigh down the heart until even the breath feels heavier. Resentment, left unresolved, can settle into the body like sediment in still water, clouding the clarity of mind and the lightness of spirit. None of this is punishment. It is simply the body being loyal to the instructions it receives from within. Change the instruction, and the manifestation must follow. This is why awareness is a turning point. It's like stepping behind the scenes of your own life and realizing you've been both the playwright and the lead actor all along. Once you see that the script is in your hands, you can rewrite it, choosing words that affirm wholeness instead of weakness, peace instead of conflict, trust instead of fear. The impact of that choice ripples outward, not only in your body, but in the way you move through the world. The journey from illness to health, from distortion to alignment, is less about fighting symptoms and more about reclaiming authority over the inner narrative. It's a quiet revolution, one that begins in thought but inevitably transforms the tangible. And as you walk it, you begin to understand that every physical shift was first a spiritual one, subtle, profound, and unstoppable once set in motion. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding how to dismantle the emotional roots of illness will open a path to transformation that goes far beyond what the body alone can show you. Write in the comments, "I release the old story." Healing, in its purest form, is not an act of force, but of remembrance. It is the gentle, steady re-education of the mind until every thought begins to flow in harmony with the higher intelligence that sustains life itself. This is not about denying reality, but about refusing to give power to distortions that masquerade as truth. When you deny evil's power, not angrily, not in fear, but with calm certainty, you strip it of the authority it was never meant to have, and in the same breath, you affirm the divine truth that has always been present, waiting to be acknowledged. The mind learns through repetition, through the quiet rhythm of thoughts returned to again and again. That is why simple, clear affirmations are not just positive words. They are seeds, planted deep in the soil of the subconscious. At first, they may feel like they float only on the surface, battling against older and louder voices. But with persistence, they sink in. They take root, and once rooted, they begin to influence everything: choices, perceptions, even the body's chemistry and cellular repair. There's a hidden truth here that many overlook. The subconscious does not argue. It accepts whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and repetition. So if your inner dialogue has been soaked in fear, in doubt, in stories of limitation, It will reflect that unquestioningly into your reality. But if you begin to speak to it with clarity and conviction, planting seeds of life, health, and peace, it will just as faithfully build your life upon that foundation. This is why every word, thought, and emotion matters, not because of superstition, but because of law. Behind the scenes of what you see as healing is a meticulous inner process. The mind, once clouded with conflicting beliefs, begins to align. The heart softens where it was hardened, and the soul's quiet authority begins to speak louder than fear. The body follows, not as a separate entity that must be convinced, but as a faithful servant mirroring the instructions it is now receiving. This is why transformation always begins, invisibly, long before there is evidence for others to see. And here lies one of the greatest revelations on this journey. You are not trying to create something new. You are unveiling what was already whole. Every affirmation is a key turning in a lock that was rusted shut by years of belief in separation. Every declaration of truth is a light breaking through fog that never had the power to remain. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you grasp how to speak directly to the subconscious with authority and love, the speed and depth of your transformation will defy what you once thought possible. Write in the comments, "I plant only truth." Denial and affirmation are like the two hands shaping the same vessel. One clears away the distortions that never belonged, the other builds upon what is eternal and unshakable. Without denial, the false remains hidden beneath layers of familiarity, clinging to the mind as if it were part of you. Without affirmation, the space left behind becomes vulnerable to the same illusions returning. It's a balance. One act uproots, the other plants. And in that rhythm, transformation becomes inevitable, because you are no longer fighting with shadows. You are replacing them with light. When truth enters, it doesn't negotiate with the lie. It simply makes it irrelevant. A single moment of genuine recognition, felt so deeply it bypasses argument, has the power to dissolve years of conditioning. It's as if you suddenly wake up from a long dream and realize that none of its threats or limitations were real. The impact of such moments can be so profound that the very framework of how you see the world begins to shift. And when that happens, you notice something remarkable. What once required great effort to resist no longer even appears as a temptation to believe. This is not about intellectual agreement. It is about deep acceptance. Acceptance not as resignation, but as the quiet, unshakable awareness of God's reality in you and around you. When that awareness settles in, old narratives lose their power, like dry leaves crumbling in your hands. You don't need to push them away. They simply can't survive in the atmosphere of truth. That is why healing can sometimes appear sudden, even miraculous. The body, mind, and emotions were always waiting for the moment you stopped feeding the false and gave all your attention to the real. The behind-the-scenes process is more subtle than most people imagine. It's not about stacking more and more affirmations like bricks in a wall. It's about allowing the truth within them to sink past resistance, to bypass the surface mind's doubts, until it touches the deeper place where decisions about your reality are made. That's where change originates, in the quiet place where your subconscious aligns with divine order. And here lies a hidden truth many overlook. The speed of transformation is not determined by time, but by readiness. The moment you stop entertaining the old story and allow the new one to take root, the shift begins, not in the future, but right now. The outer results may unfold in ways that surprise you, but the change itself has already been made. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the way you handle these moments of recognition, the way you anchor them, can determine whether your transformation becomes permanent or slips back into the old pattern. Write in the comments, "Truth replaces the lie." If your mind cannot picture health with clarity, it has nothing solid to bring into form. Vague wishes produce vague results, but a precise inner image creates a target for every thought, word, and action to align with. This is why transformation begins in the unseen. Your body cannot consistently express a reality your mind has never fully embraced. A mental equivalent is more than just a fleeting thought. It's the steady, unwavering blueprint of the state you claim as yours. When it is clear, it becomes the silent architect, shaping every detail of your outer life. Too often, people try to move toward the light while constantly describing the shadows. They pray about the problem, think about the problem, speak about the problem, and then wonder why the problem remains. Prayer, when framed in terms of what you don't want, quietly reinforces that image, feeding it more attention and energy. The subconscious doesn't argue. It simply works with the picture it's given. And if that picture is colored by fear, lack, or illness, the results will reflect it, no matter how much you long for the opposite. There's a hidden truth here. The most effective prayers don't fight the darkness. They simply turn on the light. This is not passive or naive. It is powerful focus. When you fix your attention on the presence of good, you bypass the endless cycle of analyzing what's wrong and step into the creative process of building what's right. It's a shift in mindset that feels subtle at first but grows in impact the longer you practice it. The journey is not about pretending challenges don't exist. It's about refusing to give them the power of your focus. Instead, you cultivate the image of the outcome you desire until it feels as real, as tangible, as anything you can touch. This is the behind-the-scenes work of faith, creating within before you expect to see without. And here is where the hidden architecture of your life is designed, not in grand, dramatic moments, but in the quiet, consistent discipline of choosing what pictures your mind will hold. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a way to energize that mental image so completely that it begins to influence not just your body, but the very circumstances of your life in ways you couldn't predict. Write in the comments, "I see my health clearly." Precision in the vision you hold is not a luxury. It's the foundation upon which your reality takes shape. When you describe your health in detail, when you can see it in your mind with the same richness as a memory, you give your inner world a clear set of instructions. This is not about obsessing or measuring each step toward it, but about creating a vivid inner movie that your subconscious can replay until it becomes second nature. Writing it down anchors the image. Visualizing it daily breathes life into it. Releasing it without clinging allows it to unfold with a timing and grace far beyond what you could force. It's a process of trust as much as it is of intention, and this trust is where the hidden strength lies. There's a certain kind of gratitude that has nothing to do with waiting for evidence. It's the gratitude that exists before the first visible change, before the first sign that anything is different. This is not a performance. It is the natural expression of someone who knows the result is already secured in the invisible. Gratitude in advance is more than a spiritual posture. It's a signal to every layer of your being that the decision has already been made. The law is in motion. The seed is already planted, and now your role is to nurture it with unwavering confidence. Many fail here because they confuse patience with passivity. Gratitude in faith is not sitting idly. It's active alignment. Every thankful thought waters the seed. Every moment you refuse to be swayed by appearances strengthens the roots. You are not persuading the universe to give you something. You are reinforcing within yourself the truth that it is already yours. This is the mindset that transforms waiting from frustration into a sacred stage of the journey, one where growth is happening in the unseen. When you live in this space, fear begins to lose its grip. You stop reacting to every passing shadow and start moving with the quiet assurance of someone who carries a hidden truth the world cannot touch. And the beautiful irony is that, often, by the time the evidence appears, you've already been living in the reality it represents for so long that it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there is a way to make this state of certainty so natural that nothing outside of you can shake it, no matter what appears on the surface. Write in the comments, "I live as if it's already done." Forgiveness, in its truest form, is one of the most liberating forces you can ever invite into your life. It's not a polite social gesture or a vague attempt to move on. It is an inner release, so profound that it shifts the atmosphere within you. Resentment, no matter how justified it may feel in the moment, is like holding your breath and expecting to feel more alive. It traps energy, locks emotion, and creates a subtle yet constant strain on both body and mind. You might not notice the toll immediately, but over time it weaves itself into your thoughts, your posture, even the way you breathe. The blockage is real, and it will not dissolve on its own. It must be consciously undone. 2. Forgive is not to agree with what was done. It's not to excuse, condone, or pretend that pain didn't happen. Forgiveness is the recognition that you refuse to carry the weight any longer. You are no longer willing to let the past dictate your emotional climate. It is the conscious decision to cut the invisible cords, tying you to a memory that keeps draining your present moment. In that act of release, you create space for something new to flow in. Clarity, peace, even joy. There is a hidden truth here. Sometimes we think we've forgiven because we no longer speak of the hurt, but silence alone does not heal. True forgiveness can be felt in the body. There's a lightness, a sense of unclenching deep inside. The heartbeat steadies, the breath flows easier, and the mind stops replaying the scene like a looped film. This is why forgiveness has such a profound impact on health. It's not just an emotional change, it's a physiological transformation. Stress hormones drop, tension releases, and the body begins to repair what constant inner conflict was damaging. And here's something even more striking. Forgiveness often opens the door to revelations about yourself. You begin to see where your own fears, pride, or unspoken expectations may have played a role, not in blaming yourself, but in understanding the full tapestry of the experience. It's like stepping back from a painting you've been too close to. Only then can you see the colors, the depth, and even the hidden patterns. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when forgiveness is paired with a specific inner shift, its power multiplies in ways that can completely redefine your emotional and physical reality. Write in the comments, "I choose to release the weight." Blessing those who have caused you pain may seem like an impossible act, almost absurd when the wound is still raw. Yet, it is in this very paradox that one of the deepest forms of healing hides. To bless is not to endorse their actions, nor is it to diminish the reality of what happened. It is to consciously choose to send out a vibration of goodwill that frees you from the invisible chains of bitterness. When you bless, you take back authority over your inner space. You declare that no one, regardless of what they've done, will have the power to dictate the state of your heart or the course of your energy. The truth is, most of the time, this act of blessing changes you far more than it ever impacts them. It becomes a quiet revolution within your own spirit, a soft yet undeniable release that shifts the trajectory of your thoughts and emotions. This ties directly to the power of words. Every sentence you speak carries weight. It is a seed cast into the fertile soil of your subconscious. Speak life, and you plant strength, renewal, and possibility. Speak fear or illness, and you sow roots of limitation that quietly grow beneath the surface. We often underestimate how much our own voice shapes our reality. The language we choose isn't just descriptive, it's creative. Rehearsing pain, repeating stories of misfortune, or constantly affirming weakness embeds those states deeper into our being. The mind listens, the body listens, and over time, they respond accordingly. It's not about pretending that difficulties don't exist. It's about deciding which truths you want to amplify. Imagine your mind as a carefully curated garden. Every word you speak is a seed, and the environment you create through your speech determines what will take root and flourish. Guard it with the same care you'd give to a sacred space. Replace the constant recounting of what's wrong with affirmations of what's possible. This is not denial, it's conscious cultivation. When you bless instead of curse, when you speak health instead of repeating illness, you are not ignoring reality. You are choosing which version of reality to nurture. That choice is one of the most powerful decisions you can make on the journey of transformation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when blessing and intentional speech merge, they form an unshakable foundation for lasting change that touches every area of life. Write in the comments, "I choose to plant life." Replacing complaint with gratitude is more than a change in vocabulary. It's a deliberate shift in perspective that rewires how you interact with reality itself. Complaints feed what's missing. Gratitude magnifies what's present. The mind cannot hold both energies with equal strength. When you choose gratitude, even for the smallest improvement, you interrupt the spiral of dissatisfaction that quietly drains your vitality. And the remarkable thing is, gratitude doesn't require everything to be perfect before it's expressed. It works in reverse. The moment you express it, even for something barely visible, it begins to expand. This is the subtle power that transforms the atmosphere within you and around you, turning the smallest flicker of hope into something far more substantial. When you speak truth alongside gratitude, you create a resonance that aligns your inner and outer worlds. Truth in this sense is not about cold facts or surface appearances. It is about aligning with the deeper reality of life's abundance, possibility, and divine order. By affirming what is good, no matter how small or hidden, you are not denying challenges. You are refusing to give them the final word. This is not naive optimism. It's the choice to water seeds of healing instead of weeds of despair. The gospel healings are perhaps the clearest evidence of this law in action. They are not distant stories locked in a sacred book. They are living demonstrations of timeless principles. Each account carries an unchanging pattern: faith that refuses to bow to appearances, forgiveness that dissolves hidden burdens, gratitude that precedes the visible result, and an unshakable alignment with the source of all life. These are not just religious ideals. They are functional laws waiting to be applied. The blind saw, the lame walked, the outcast was restored, and none of these outcomes came from clinging to complaint or replaying the narrative of limitation. They happened when the inner world was brought into harmony with the truth of divine wholeness. When you understand that these accounts are not exceptions but examples, the hidden truth emerges. You carry the same access to transformation. The journey is not about imitating an event, but embodying the mindset that made it possible: faith that trusts beyond sight, forgiveness that clears the heart's weight, gratitude that stabilizes the change, and truth that anchors it all. This is the pattern. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you begin to live from this pattern consciously, the impact goes far beyond physical healing. It shapes every decision, every relationship, every step of your journey. Write in the comments, "I live the pattern." Faith, in its purest form, is not a distant hope or a set of repeated words. It is the living, breathing contact between your inner being and the presence of God. It is the awareness that you are not separate from the source, but moving in rhythm with it. This kind of faith does not rely on ritual, on exact words, or on following a checklist of spiritual actions. Instead, it is an inner alignment, a deep, settled knowing that shifts how you see, think, and respond to life. And because it is alive, faith naturally expresses itself through decisions, actions, and words that mirror the truth you believe. It is not static, it is movement, a constant returning to the center where divine presence flows without interruption. This is where many miss the hidden truth. Faith is not an escape from reality, but a deeper entry into it. When your mind and heart stand in that alignment, the way you approach challenges changes entirely. What once felt like a battle to force change becomes a willingness to step into what is already unfolding in divine order. You no longer act from fear or lack. You act from fullness and clarity. And then comes peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on everything going right, but a peace that operates as an active spiritual force. True peace is not passive. It holds space for transformation to happen without being distorted by panic or haste. It is like a calm harbor in the middle of a storm, where you can think clearly, listen deeply, and allow what is necessary to emerge. This stillness is not emptiness. It is charged with presence, ready to guide you with precision and without noise. When you are anchored in this kind of peace, divine order works unhindered. You stop grasping, stop chasing, and start allowing. This doesn't mean you become inactive. It means your actions are no longer reactions. They are intentional steps taken from a place of wholeness. And in that state, you become highly sensitive to the subtle direction of spirit, a nudge, a thought, an inner knowing that seems to arrive out of nowhere, but carries the exact clarity you needed. It's here that transformation becomes almost effortless. You realize that the work is not in wrestling with circumstances, but in maintaining the stillness that allows truth to operate. From the outside, it might look like you're doing less, but on the inside, you're in the most powerful position possible. Fully open, fully aligned, fully receptive. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when faith and peace work together, they create a force that not only changes outcomes, but reshapes the very atmosphere around you. Write in the comments, I live in alignment. When your inner world is in order, it shows, not only in the way you think, but in the way you move through life. A mind cluttered with worry, resentment, and scattered attention often produces the same chaos in the body and circumstances. But when you cultivate mental clarity, when you choose simplicity over excess and cleanliness over disorder, something begins to align beneath the surface. It's as if you create a clear channel for life to flow more freely. Regular prayer becomes the steady rhythm that keeps this channel open, not as a rigid obligation, but as a living connection that refreshes and restores. Prayer in this sense is not about words recited on schedule. It's about keeping your mind attuned to the highest truth throughout the day, letting that awareness become as natural as breathing. This kind of order has a quiet strength. It's not about perfection or controlling every detail. It's about creating an environment, internally and externally, that supports the presence of peace and health. The way you organize your home, the way you set your priorities, even the way you approach your mornings, all contribute to this inner stability. You begin to notice that physical health often follows mental order like a shadow, because the body responds to the climate of the mind. And when it comes to others, the same principle applies. If you are praying for someone, your imagination is not just a passive daydream, it is a creative force. To consecrate your imagination means to set it apart for truth, to use it as a tool for healing rather than reinforcing the problem. It's easy to look at someone's struggle and unconsciously keep picturing them in that state, but doing so only reaffirms the image of their illness. Instead, you choose to hold a vision of their wholeness, to see them as already restored, already aligned with the divine order that governs all life. This is not denial. It's alignment with the deeper reality that goes beyond appearances. Such a mindset changes the energy of your prayers. You are no longer pleading for something to happen. You are affirming the truth that already exists, even if it hasn't yet appeared in the physical. In that space, your faith is not just words. It becomes a channel through which renewal can flow, unblocked by fear or doubt. And over time, you may notice how this approach not only impacts the person you are praying for, but also refines your own inner state. You learn to see beyond the surface, to trust the process, and to remain anchored in the conviction that what is real and eternal will always prevail over what is temporary and fragmented. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when order, imagination, and faith converge, they create a spiritual atmosphere where transformation becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Write in the comments, I choose divine order. Perseverance in the face of symptoms is not about pretending they aren't there, or forcing yourself to feel what you don't. It's about holding your inner ground when everything on the surface is trying to convince you otherwise. Faith isn't tested in the moments when all is calm. It's tested when your senses scream that nothing is changing, when discomfort seems louder than truth. In those moments, your mindset becomes the deciding factor. Will you let appearances dictate your reality, or will you stand in the quiet knowing that what is real is already at work beneath the surface? This is where transformation happens, not through sudden miracles alone, but through the steady choice to remain anchored in the unseen reality of healing. This steadiness is like planting a seed and trusting the process without digging it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it with gratitude, shield it from the weeds of doubt, and allow time and divine order to do their work. Perseverance in faith is not stubborn denial. It is an unwavering alignment with the higher law that governs life. And something beautiful happens when this perseverance matures. Health ceases to be merely the absence of illness and becomes a living expression of light. When your health is sustained, when your mind and body operate in harmony, it naturally spills over into the way you touch the world. Gratitude no longer feels like a duty. It flows effortlessly because you've experienced the impact of grace firsthand. Love becomes less about fleeting emotion and more about a steady willingness to see the good in others, even when they can't see it in themselves. Service transforms from a moral obligation into a joyful offering, a natural outpouring of the abundance you carry within. True health is expansive. It's not something you hoard or protect with fear, but something that radiates outward, strengthening others just by your presence. It's a light that doesn't demand attention, yet draws people in, because they feel the peace, the steadiness, the clarity that comes from a life aligned with deeper truth. This is the hidden gift of perseverance. It shapes you into someone whose very existence becomes a vessel of encouragement and healing for others. And when this happens, you realize the journey was never just about physical restoration. It was about becoming the kind of person who embodies the very qualities you sought: faith, peace, gratitude, and love, until they flow naturally through every word, every gesture, every decision. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the bridge between personal healing and becoming a source of light for others holds one of the most profound revelations on this journey. Write in the comments, "I walk in light." If you've walked with me through this entire journey, you already know how powerful these truths can be when they're lived, not just heard. That's why I'd love for you to stay connected here. Every time we meet, we go a little deeper, uncovering more of what truly transforms life from the inside out. If you felt this message resonate with you, leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end," so I know you're part of this circle of seekers. And if this conversation touched something in you, give it a like. It's a simple way to keep this light flowing. There's a video right here that complements this topic beautifully. Click and continue with me over there.